We are back. This is Syracuse Sports Live. Syracuse football postgame presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics. You got Brent Axe. You got Chris Carlson here. We're coming off the heels of a 30-13 loss for Syracuse football on homecoming weekend at the JMA Wireless Dome tonight. Or actually last night, as it's 1:40 in the morning here, and we're technically a Sunday morning on the program, right? But a loss for Syracuse in which, Chris, the reality is set in, right? That you called this a couple of weeks ago. I think most people were just kind of hanging on as long as they could. But let's be honest here. This season went awry when Steve Angeli went down at Clemson with a season-ending injury. Maybe Rickie Collins could step in and make this team get over the finish line at 6 wins, be a functional backup quarterback that just keeps the offense afloat here. And that's the irony of this game, by the way. The defense played out of its mind by its standards with 7 sacks and 12 tackles for loss, which if this defense gives you that, by God, you've got to take advantage of that, and they couldn't. So what this has turned into, Chris, by Fran Brown's own admission in some ways with how he described his quarterbacks after in the postgame press conference, we'll get to a few of those things, it's a developmental year. It's a season most people maybe had a twinge of fear it would turn into, but not for the reasons we thought, Chris. Most people looked at the schedule and said that's why this team might just kind of have a gap here. It's not the schedule. It's because they don't have a quarterback.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even I, as somebody who said they should treat this as a developmental year, right? That was my whole thing. Schedule is too hard. Don't go out and buy 1-year transfers. Save your sort of pennies for another year. It is hard to maintain that line of thinking when the quarterback play looks so bad and the offense looks so dysfunctional. Like it's hard to be like, well, the better days are coming when you're watching sort of the ugliness happen right in front of you. But that is it. Like the offense was good with Steve Angeli, and it's not good with Rickie Collins. And it doesn't appear that Luke Carney is like a fix, although he didn't get much of a chance. But we just saw him make some conservative plays and throw short, which is not gonna do everything this offense needs to be good.
The most telling thing about that, Luke Carney comes in to start the second half. First series, they run 3 run plays. Willis, Nixon, and a keeper by Luke Carney, which for a good part of the game was the longest run from scrimmage that Syracuse had. You're not going to run the ball against Pitt. You're not going to get the short passes against Pitt. You have to challenge Pitt. You and I talked about this in the press box. You've mentioned this a number of times. You've got to beat Pittsburgh by challenging them on the perimeter. They're going to come at you, and you have got to have a quarterback that can throw the football. Rickie Collins has arm talent, but he doesn't have the accuracy and everything else that has to come with that, with a quarterback consistently enough to challenge Pittsburgh in that way. So Carney comes in, and the most telling thing, Chris, was on a 3rd and 9 pass play, Fran Brown takes him off the field and puts Rickie Collins back out there, who's promptly swarmed by 4 Pittsburgh defenders and sacked. What a telling moment there. That now, look, Luke Carney's a young quarterback, but if you're going to put him on the field, you got to let him throw the ball. And you didn't trust him to throw the football on a 3rd and 9. Like, that's where we're at with this quarterback thing. And look, Luke, I think, made some quick decisions out there. He certainly showed his mobility. That's the kind of quarterback he was in Texas. He had over 10,000 yards passing. He was a mobile quarterback, won 4 state titles, and was just a versatile threat on the field. But man, they don't even trust him enough to throw the ball. And I asked Fran after the game, like, how much of the offense does he know? And again, to Fran's credit, he was very honest in his post-game press conference. He's like, not a lot, right? Well, we saw that. So
the truth comes out when you lose. Right? Like the past couple of weeks we've heard, oh yeah, he can run the whole thing. Yeah, we're very confident in Luke if he had to go into the game. But like when you lose, like it helps when the coach it helps the coach explain himself when he gives you a dose of the old honesty.
We were also told that it was a close quarterback battle all summer, which, come on, that's starting to be a little bit of a misnomer. At this point, clearly it was not, right? But here's the difference in the modern era, right? As Fran Brown admittedly said, I've got young quarterbacks that are developing here. I don't want to misquote him here, but he was very honest about the fact that's why we went and got Steve Angeli. I think everybody knew this. It was obvious, of course, but Fran flat out said it in the presser after the game. Like, this is why we went and got Steve Angeli. We saw this team under Angeli and where Collins and Carney are compared to Steve Angeli. So I appreciate that honesty. But, Chris, they could have won this football game if they had a functioning offense, not a good offense, not an average offense, a functional quarterback. I think they could have beaten SMU as well in that bad secondary. And SMU beat Clemson tonight, which I don't even know what that means anymore, to beat Clemson these days. And Clemson had a backup quarterback in for Cade Klubnik, who was injured. So it just goes to show you, Chris, it's the most obvious thing in not only football, but all of sports, but is being reinforced before our very eyes here. You got to have a quarterback. Syracuse does not. And they could have won this game because their defense balled out. Their defense made a switch at halftime of the SMU game, which Fran Brown referenced, saying, talk to Elijah Robinson. This is what I want. This is our identity. And Robinson called as good and as aggressive a game as I have seen him called. That was a freshman on the other side of the field, by the way. Mason Heichel's a impressive quarterback, but you get after him a little bit, and look what happened. 7 sacks, 12 tackles for loss. They picked him off, which set up a touchdown, one of the rare good plays Syracuse had on offense, an 11-yard touchdown pass to Darrell Gill. This was a game, Chris, with a functional quarterback. You could have uglied out, 23-20, something like that. They are not even in position to do that right now.
And that is right. That is the shame of losing Angeli. And the way they did, right? Where it wasn't even like the offensive line's not great. So he was going to get hit eventually and get hurt. No, it was just a fluke, his Achilles rupture.
Yeah.
And like, there was a decent chance they'd be 6-1.
Yeah.
Right now, if he had not gotten hurt, right? And just the quarterback. If Steve Angeli was healthy, there was a chance this team is 6-1 instead of 3-4.
Which
that's wild.
They found Kyle McCord, and we know that story, the connection with Fran Brown there and everything. But they found Kyle McCord, and he set all kinds of records last year. They found Steve Angeli. If you give Jeff Nixon a great quarterback, that offense flows and is fun to watch and scores points and is a threat to win games. To be fair, look, there's a big difference between Josh Allen running the Bills offense and Mitch Trubisky running the Buffalo Bills offense.
Jake Browning and Joe Burrow, right?
Thank you. That's why, look at our guy Joe Flacco goes out there and wins a game for Cincinnati. He's there for 5 minutes because he's been around the block a few times, right? I understand that, right? But there's a difference when you're paying Rickie Collins what you're paying him to be a backup. So now what Fran Brown is admitting is, and he did reference 2026. He looked ahead. He said, this great recruiting class we have, these young guys that aren't quite ready but are developing, players that are on the field like Delorier and Demetrius Samuel. He's saying, hang with me through this developmental year, and boy, 2026 is really going to be something, right? In the meantime, Chris, if I'm a fan that is being asked to pay to watch this, who's being scolded for booing the situation on the field, Fran Brown telling Rickie Collins and answering a question about Rickie Collins, saying that don't worry about people who don't know you, okay? But they are asking you to pay money to watch this. They're asking you to, instead of going trick-or-treating with your kids on Halloween or going to a Halloween party, to pay money and come watch this product right now. They are asking you to think long-term. They are asking you, hang with us, man, because 2026 is going to be something, right? So if you believe in Fran Brown enough, and I think Fran Brown has established a number of things, recruiting, transfer portal-wise, honesty with us, the media. I didn't like what he said earlier this week because I wrote a column about it, but I think he was pretty transparent tonight, which we're going to get to a clock management issue as well. He's as honest as anyone would be in that situation. We're now at that point where it's like, hey, guys, he didn't say this. This is me, putting this all together and stating what Captain Obvious would here. This team's not going to a bowl game. This has become a developmental year, so come along for the ride as we take our bumps and bruises here. But, man, 2026 is really going to be something.
And it's possible, right? Like I
according to them, yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of pieces that you really, really like. Like if you keep Demetrius Samuel for his whole career, and you keep Antoine Delorier for his whole career, and you keep Steve Angeli for 2 more years, and Byron Washington, we like what we've seen out of him so far. Like
there's out tonight, by the way. Byron did not play with an undisclosed. Bad job by us. No, but did anybody ask about that at the post-game press conference?
We'll ask Monday.
We'll ask on
Monday.
On with the quarterbacks. We will ask on Monday for sure. Yeah,
but there's a lot of pieces to like going into 2026. I think there's reason for optimism, but they've asked for the challenge is Syracuse has asked for optimism from its fans for a long time without a whole lot of bang for that buck.
Chris, you wrote this story to switch to something that happened at the end of the first half of this game. Syracuse gets the ball, 30 seconds to go, 3 straight passing plays. It gives Pitt the ball back, and what does Pitt do? They run back a punt for a touchdown. Kenny Johnson, 66 yards the other way, to which Fran Brown, and I quote, says, as Chris wrote about, you guys can check this out on syracuse.com, one of the worst things that I've done. So I appreciate the honesty. Here's the full quote. That was just really bad coaching. That's probably one of the worst things that I've done since I've been a football coach here, as far as one of the decisions I've made. So again, transparency, honesty, appreciate that. Dino Babers would never go to the podium and say that. A lot of coaches would not go to the podium and say that. But you still did it. You're still 20 games into being a head coach and made a major mistake like that the football gods punished you for by letting Pitt get the ball back. And you look at that box score, it says 2 seconds left until halftime. Boom, touchdown the other way, right? So Fran, 20 games in, I'm not expecting Fran Brown to be a polished head coach product on day one, but game 20, you can't be doing those kind of things. So again, I appreciate that he admitted that, but you still can't do these things, especially when you know you're in a situation where this offense is going to really struggle to put up points and you're handing free touchdowns away because you couldn't run 30 seconds off the clock.
The thing that makes me wonder, but I wrote about this multiple times last year of how Syracuse managed 2-minute drills immaculately, right? It was one of the more impressive things about them when they got into 2-minute drills last year. They were very, very successful. And they had Kyle McCord. So like Kyle McCord makes things go well. So part of me is like, Fran was really, really aggressive. And when he had Kyle McCord, that was like generally a good idea. Like with Kyle, you could be aggressive. You could be aggressive even in those situations. Like Kyle was going to complete the passes. The worst thing that's going to happen is the clock is going to keep running. Like that's going to work. Now, he has not been a head coach with a quarterback like Rickie Collins, where it's like, whew, like, thank God we're at halftime and we only lose by 3 points. So I just wonder if it's like he has to like flip the switch a little bit and be like, hey, this is like, I have to think a little bit differently about the game now that when Kyle McCord is not my quarterback. And I can't just be uber aggressive all the time. I've got to play conservatively in spots. I don't know. I thought about that a little bit in terms of like why he would, go that route. Why you'd throw 3 passes.
Well,
in that situation.
I think you're spot on there. And I think they're still struggling even after a bye week overall with that. Like, here's our offense. Here's what we do. Here's our philosophy. But do you have the player to do it? With Kyle McCord, you can do that. Rickie Collins has not proven that he can put you in position even to get a field goal, right? He's got the arm strength. He chucks one up there to Darryl Gill, theoretically, who puts you in field goal position. Then it's worth it, right?
But it's not a good bet, right? That's not a
good bet right now. That's not a bet that, any seasoned gambler would make, even somebody that's just, drunk at the casino at 2 a.m, playing craps. They don't even make that bet, right? So these are costly things generally, but it's a lot, when a smart team like Pitt that's bing bang. Now, again, a punt return is
a little fluky,
but
Pitt would have had time to run an offensive play after the fair catch and like maybe gotten themselves in field goal range. That would have been a possibility too.
That's why I'm glad the football gods intervened there and said, no, you can't do that. Like, you can't keep making that mistake. Now, I brought this up earlier, Chris. Maybe this will improve going forward. You cannot run the ball against Pittsburgh. They're 32nd overall defense. Like, they will not let you run the ball.
Nobody can.
Nobody can. Next week is a game you're going to have to run the football. because Georgia Tech wants to grind. They can run the ball as well as anybody. They beat Duke today 27-18. That was a game until the fourth quarter, but then they just scored, 17 points in the fourth quarter. Haynes King, quarterback at Georgia Tech. Now, again, Heitchel is a talented quarterback. He's still a freshman, though, and you can force him into some mistakes. I liked what I saw from the Syracuse defense today. Can they do that against a Haynes King next week as consistently as they did against the Mason Heitchel today? It's going to be harder, but you got to run the football. And Syracuse has just not proven it can run the football this year. And if anything is going to help a struggling quarterback, it's that. The problem is everybody knows it. Everybody knows this quarterback is struggling, and they're basically going to dare you to run the ball because they know you're going to try it. A guy like Dan Villari was having a great season up to this point. Tonight, just 3 catches for 19 yards. There was a drive. There was a 9-play drive where Rickie was finding Jonte Cook. They were moving the football. They just didn't score on that drive. So that's the thing, Chris. Like, Rickie has these moments. He has these spurts where he shows he can do it. It's just all the time in between that where he just is still trying to find himself as a quarterback. And again, this is what you're being asked to invest in. You're being asked to pay for, invest, and hang in there for 5 more games while Rickie Collins develops, admittedly, as Fran Brown said tonight, as the backup quarterback of this team. He's the starter right now, and when he was asked at the presser whether Rickie is still the starter, and again, Fran's transparency here is appreciated, he said, yeah, right now he is, but who knows, right? I'm paraphrasing what he said, but it was not a declarative Rickie's my guy like it was last week. Like, Luke Carney's going to play, I think, going forward here. But Chris, if you don't trust Luke Carney to throw the football on 3rd down and 9, like, it's a situational thing with Carney, which again, teams are going to pick up on pretty darn quickly. So I don't want to sound rude here and say you're stuck with Rickie, but you're kind of stuck with Rickie at this point if you want to put a quarterback out there that can throw the ball.
Yeah, unless you want to go like some of those old Nebraska triple option teams where it's like, oh man, we got to throw the ball. Bring in the throwing quarterback.
Dan Villari 2 years ago. Like, do you have to go back to that? Good old Dan, man, he's still there. I mean, I wouldn't ask Dan Villari to do that again. That guy was showing up at press conferences literally with ice packs stitched all over his body. Like, I think he's better off at tight end.
It's funny. We talked about the run game. Like I don't blame Syracuse. Pat Narduzzi would rather lose a football game than let you run the ball.
Yeah.
Like he will go home feeling good about his masculinity because he stopped the run. And if you beat him with that newfangled forward pass, well, that's some tricky football right there. Like Syracuse was never going to run the ball tonight. But the thing that I worry about, or the thing that I guess concerns me, like LaQuint Allen, Syracuse was really good with him because he was such a balanced running back.
Correct.
He could run the ball and he could break some tackles, and he was exceptional as a wide receiver. He was exceptional as a pass blocker. Like tonight, Syracuse took Yasin Willis off the field on almost every 3rd down because he's not as good in the pass game as Will Nixon, or at least they don't believe him to be. And Yasin Willis is maybe their best player, right? Fran has said that he's our best playmaker, but you can't have him on the field in 3rd and medium, 3rd and long situations because you don't seem to trust him in the pass game. They don't have a balanced back the same way. When Yasin is in, it's going to be power, and when Will is in, it's going to be pass game. And there's not a lot of unpredictability in that.
Which I'm not seeing it from Will Nixon. Will Nixon is not doing enough, and he was a little banged up in this game, by the way. We'll see what that injury situation is going. He limped off the field at one point. But let's see here. Will Nixon tonight, 5 carries, 9 yards, 2 catches, 8 yards. He has not proven that he is on the level to consistently be a threat in the passing game. As you said, and I hate to just keep comparing him to last year, but last year showed us when this offense has talent, what it's capable of. There's a downgraded quarterback. There's a downgrade at running back. I think you've seen Willis will get there. And again, everybody thinks he's one of the more talented guys on the field. Can't do anything when he's on the sideline on 3rd down. But when he was on the field tonight, again, you're not running the ball against Pitt. I mean, hell or high water. But 14 carries, 21 yards. Rickie was your leading rusher with 37 yards. So next week might be a better kind of report card on that because I feel like you got to fight fire with Georgia Tech and be able to run the ball somewhat, right? I mean, Georgia Tech's 7-0. They're the first place team in the ACC now. Chris, we're on a collision course for a Georgia Tech Virginia ACC championship game at this point, with Miami losing on Friday. Who's ready for that? Let's go. Ratings bonanza in that one.
Jim Phillips is tearing his hair out and cursing Mario Cristobal. Georgia Tech is a team. You look at their PFF stats real quick. They're not a great tackling team. So you're right. If like, the run game would be a good place to hurt them. You want to shorten games as much as possible when you're the inferior team, which Syracuse is right now. Georgia Tech is Georgia Tech plays a lot of close games. Like Brent Key plays that same style. Haynes King is Eric Dungy 2.0, but they will grind the clock and they want a low possession game, and they just trust Haynes King to make plays when it's time to make plays. So like that is a place where you can. I'm not going to predict Syracuse pulls an upset, but like a low possession game is what you want if you're Syracuse, and if you can run the ball and make it even lower possession next week, like that's what they got to do. You're right. Well,
this is an offensive line that, let's face it, is having its struggles. They're banged up. Byron Washington didn't play tonight. Travion Mack was listed as questionable. TJ Ferguson is on the questionable list. They played, but
Austin Collins, who had led the team in snaps heading into this game.
Austin Collins got hurt. Thank you for reminding me. I forgot to mention that earlier. Austin Collins got hurt on the first play of the game and did not come back. So there's a guy you went in, got out of the portal. By all accounts, you said it, played more snaps than anybody. Just they trusted him from the minute he arrived on campus to be that starting center, is that veteran presence. We'll see how severe that injury is. We asked Fran after the game. He didn't know the severity of the injury at this point, so we'll follow up on that on Monday. And
that's it.
See where they're at there. So Josh Miller comes in at center, and it's only one game. I got to see if he can handle the load going forward here. But here you have an offensive line that once again has to shuffle some pieces around, which you don't want to be doing heading into a game. You have to run the football.
I talked to Josh a little bit afterwards, and he's like, first series of the game, like I'm still on the sidelines trying to pump up my teammates. He's going up and down the sidelines trying to get people into it, and then all of a sudden he's like, it's like, oh, hey Josh, get in there and like play the rest of the game at center. He said he struggled. He felt early on, like making some of the calls and the reads, and he felt a little out of sorts. He said he thought he got better as the game went on, but the Syracuse offense this year, the center makes the protection calls, and then the quarterback has the ability to adjust. But that is a big thing. Like losing your center, losing the guy who's sort of the brain of your offensive line is another concern, both for Rickie Collins. He's going to have to make more corrections. He's going to have to think a little bit harder, perhaps, as the quarterback, and it makes it harder for your run game to get going.
What did you think of Fran when he was asked about Rickie being booed, and then he said, "Well, boo me"? I said, "Well, I think they were booing you too. There was equal opportunity here with the booing at this game." Rickie saying, "You didn't hear it." Like, yeah, you did. Like, come on. There was no mistaking what was happening. There's not like a situation where they can confuse your name a little bit. Like when they're
saying boo earns.
Exactly. They're not saying Bruce. They're booing you. Okay. They are booing you, which is tough. But again, we're in a different era when you're paying a quarterback to come in and compliment your starter. And Rickie Collins, I don't want to say was hyped up to a certain extent, but look, they went after him in the portal. He comes from LSU. He's an Elite 11 guy. Like, he comes in with some credentials, and now we're talking about him like he's a freshman who's only been around for 5 minutes. He hasn't been around enough or long enough like an Angeli is, but we were at least given the impression that Rickie could just step in and run an offense if he was called to duty to do so. And obviously we have not seen that in the 3 games that he started, right? But what'd you think about how Fran reacted to the booing and said, like, don't worry about what people who don't know you say? Like, I don't know, man. Like I don't know. I thought that was interesting to say the least. What'd you think?
So I'll answer your question, but like this is like an interesting place for me in college sports.
Yeah.
Because Rickie Collins is still young and did nothing wrong to warrant our ire, the ire of this community, other than, he might not be as good as we thought he was. But he is getting paid starting quarterback money, which could be used for a defensive end or a linebacker or a lineman. And that is part of like how you build a roster now. So if he's making starting quarterback money and he's not producing, I struggle with like how much to blame very young growing people for that reality right now. It is I am still struggling myself with like wrapping my head around that. Like how much?
That's fair. That,
you know,
I am too, but it's kind of the new reality we've been put in here. With college athletes, when they succeed, they're young men. When they struggle, they're kids. They're kids, right?
Yep,
but now they're paid kids. Like you said, he's being paid starting quarterback money that comes with a certain level of expectation, right? But it's also the reality of Pitt had to change quarterbacks. Clemson saw a drop-off in quarterback play, and people have been critical of Cade Klubnik this year. It's just a reality. You lose a quarterback that is on Steve Angeli's level, or other examples you want to give me here. It's just not just because you're paying somebody doesn't mean they're going to come in and streamline this thing. That being said, Chris, I think I can have an expectation that he can come in and run a functional offense. Like, I think he's been around the block enough, got enough reps as the starter, and has enough knowledge of this offense that you can get by and win an ugly game like this. So if that keeps up, going to be a long 5 games. Going to be a long 5 games for people to hang in there. And the age-old question comes back, hey, when's basketball season start? And the interest is just going to wane in this team if this keeps up. And people are just going to be much more into other things, let alone basketball. We're in a world where you have a lot more options on your Saturday afternoon if you don't want to watch a developmental football team. Is kind of the title that hovers above them now. Well,
I think I said, like you said, I said a couple games ago, like season's over. Like, you hope the diehards will enjoy the process of watching guys grow. And there is certainly some enjoyment in that as a fan to watch through the struggling years and be rewarded at the end of it with the good years. But like, that's what you're in it for now, right? That's why you're watching. You're not going to get a whole lot of enjoyment out of this team, I don't think. But I want to touch on a little bit. You said, what do I make of Fran?
Oh, yeah.
In his comments to Rickie. I don't think a whole lot of it either way. I don't know what else. That's what a coach sort of has to say. Like tune out the noise. Don't listen to those people. Cayenne Anthony said something similar at Syracuse basketball day about talking to his high school coach about all the people that got on him and you're not as good as your dad and that sort of thing. And it was just like, hey, like these people are booing you because you're doing something more relevant than most of them will ever do. And you just have to like, let it go. Like, I just think that's something coaches have to tell athletes in that sort of high profile position. And I will say, like, Fran has generally impressed me with his expectations for the fans, right? Like when he gets like, hey, why don't you tell the fans, do you think fans should come out? And it's generally like, well, I think we need to give them a reason to come out. Like I generally think he has like the right mindset with that. So I didn't make much of that comment.
Chris, thank you for hanging with us here late into the night, early in the morning, depending on how you look at it here. We appreciate everybody watching live right now, by the way. Those of you listening and watching later on, I don't blame you because it was a late night. But those of you that hung with us live, we really appreciate it. But thanks for your coverage. And look, we're going to be here, guys. I know it's turned into a developmental year, but Chris, Javon, and I will be on the beat. We'll
write about the development.
Development time, baby. That's what this has turned into. So we'll be there, but some other things are going to start to take your attention away. So good for us, I guess, because we'll still be there telling you what's going on if you want to come back and check in. But that's just a hard sell now, especially those I like to call them the fair weather 10,000, the people that go to games or invest because, hey, it's fun or it's something to do. They're just not developmental people. Well, it's going to be hard to get them to invest in this thing, but if they still want to keep up on it, we're here for you. Thank you, Chris. I'm going to let you go and see what the insiders had to say about this one. Listen to a couple voicemails, and then right deep into the night, as I'm sure you will be doing as well here.
All right. Enjoy the Insiders. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Chris. Much appreciated. That is Chris Carlson, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only. Yeah, it's a developmental year now. Look, they needed to show something in this game. They needed this game. If there was any flicker of hope that they were going to get over the finish line and get to a bowl game, they had to win this game because you have Georgia Tech on the road. You have Miami on the road. I know Miami lost to Louisville, but Louisville's a much better team than Syracuse is. And you have Notre Dame. Can you see this team winning any of those games? They're going to struggle to win a game. Let me rephrase it. They're going to struggle to win every game left on the schedule if your quarterback play is at this level. And the defense, well, they had a great game tonight. To expect that the rest of the year, particularly against some of those quarterbacks and teams I mentioned, that's a lofty expectation. But credit to the defense for how much better they played. But if you're putting your team in a position to just be functional against a decent Pitt team tonight, and you couldn't even get over the hump there. Think of the challenge it's going to be, even to beat a North Carolina. North Carolina lost to Cal on Friday night, 21-18. North Carolina stinks, and we all know what's going on with Belichick there, but that football team stinks. But Syracuse is going to have a hard time beating anyone left on the schedule if their quarterback play can't get to a functional level, right? So that's kind of where we're at. We are now in a developmental year with some other talented players. Now think of those seniors in those players that are not in developmental situations, that are talented, that are going to have to look at this and be like, no matter what we do, we put it on our quarterback and he just can't deliver consistently. Maybe Rickie Collins will improve enough in the next 5 games. Maybe there will be a moment, there will be a game, there will be a situation. Because again, he has his moments. He has these moments where he'll make a pass. He'll scramble. They took away one of his big scrambles in this game because of a holding penalty. But, man, there's just moments in there when he does it. But there's just too many bad throws. Can't look off the safety. Doesn't process the offense quickly enough. The honesty is appreciated. But not you're paying a developmental backup quarterback, starting quarterback money. And that's why the boos come out. That's why fans react the way that they do. Because we're in a different era now. You showed last year what you can do in 1 year with a mixture of your own players, your own recruits, transfers, and holdovers from the Dino Babers era, right? To then be asked to just, hey, stick with us here for another year, and then starting next year, we're going to get back to it. I mean, that's a tough ask. You wet the beak a little bit. You show people you can be successful. We're used to 6-6. We're used to mediocre football. We're used to like, hey, man, let's see if this team can just get over that 500 finish line. Like, it's tilted back to normal. For how long is the question, and asking people to be patient with that, that's a tough ask. I get what Fran is saying, and Fran does have a track record of recruiting well, and he can make these claims and back them up because he's done it. We've seen it, but to grin and bear it for the next 5 games is going to be tough. Is going to be tough. Let's see what our insiders had to say about this one. Our Syracuse Sports Insiders are the best. You guys were certainly fired up during this game. Being a Syracuse Sports Insider gives you direct text message access to me anytime. Your questions, your comments, your thoughts, your opinions on all matters of Syracuse sports. As we mentioned, this is basketball season yet. Basketball is knocking on the door here. But whatever you want to know from players, from coaches, your opinions, your thoughts, your questions, and your voice heard exclusively on this podcast. Being a Syracuse Sports Insider also gives you the secret voicemail line. We're going to listen to a couple of voicemails here in a second, but let's see what you guys had to say about this one. Spencer jumps in and says the defense played more than well enough to win this game. It seems like if the offense functioned at all, they'd have a really good chance at winning this game. Until they do find a base level of competence, I don't think they can win a game the rest of the year. And see, I don't think that's a big ask. All things considered, college football to have a base level competent offense with a backup quarterback is not a big ask in big boy Division I ACC football. It's not a big ask. No matter what level Mason Heichel is a freshman. He has won 3 straight games at Pittsburgh. It can be done. right? And it's been, now they struggled tonight more than they have in the prior two games, but Mason Heichel, they make the switch and Pitt is better as a result. From Eli Holstein, who was the, I believe, ACC Freshman of the Week like 5 times last year. It also goes to show you, unfortunately, how quickly things can fall off the cliff for a quarterback. Now, Holstein had some injuries and has dealt with some other situations there, but I don't think it's a big ask to put a quarterback out there and just, can you run an offense that wins a game 23-20 when your defense is balling out the way that they did tonight? And every game's a different scenario and a different matchup. So how Syracuse would be competitive against Georgia Tech next week is an entirely different game plan than what they need to do against Pittsburgh. But it's just all going to come back to that. It all comes back to the quarterback, right? And we're just going to be banging our heads, it seems like, unless there's some improvement there for the next 5 games, just like, man, woulda, coulda, shoulda, but we don't have a quarterback, right? Robbie T says, don't get why Fran would tell us that Luke is ready to go in only to have him replace him on an obvious passing down. Other than that, I appreciate the effort that our guys are playing with. Hope to see as much dart as possible during the next 5 games from both coaches and players. 2026 and beyond is looking fantastic. From Seth B., who says, anybody want to guarantee that this offense can score enough points to win another game this year? BC, UNC, they both can beat us. Only bright spot was a fired-up defense who played great tonight. From Cody, my man, what's up, Neff? Says, I felt like this game was very winnable. The offense just couldn't capitalize at all on anything. The last 30 seconds of that first half, the score still tells us how it was in reach. Stevie N says, poorly coached and played game by Syracuse. Another embarrassing loss at home. If Syracuse had a functioning offense and did not make that boneheaded play just before the half, this one could have been interesting. Randy H says, it's just become a lost season. Proof how much one player can make a huge difference. Syracuse played well enough on defense to win. He just can't win many games on offense like this, he being Rickie. It's become pretty sad. You know, that play before halftime, like, that is Dino Babers-esque. That's just not something I would expect from Fran Brown. And again, I appreciate his candor and honesty, saying that's like the worst thing he's done, but you still did it. And it's not the first time people have looked at a clock management thing with France. What's happening here? Like, he's still learning as a head coach, but when you're 20 games into the job, like, you're supposed to leave those things behind a lot earlier than this. Again, which I don't think is a big ask. I think a head football coach, everybody makes mistakes and makes bad calls, but man, that's a big blunder right there. And again, the football gods made him pay. All right, you want to do that? Well, here's Pitt gets the ball, and before the offense can even get on the field, punt return, 66 yards. Bing, bang, boom. We have a secret voicemail line. If you're a Syracuse Sports Insider, and they get their voice heard on this postgame show, and I know we've got a couple of voicemails we're going to go to here. Let us start. Let me see here. Give me a sec, guys. Bing, boom, boom, boom. Voicemail number 1. Let's take a listen.
Brent, it's Frankie Saraceno here in Connecticut. Man, I got to tell you, you said it in one of your recent text messages before the end of this debacle. And yes, I'm leaving this voice message before clock strikes 0. Is it basketball season yet? I honestly did not think I'd be saying that after the Clemson game. Despite Angeli's injury, I really thought that team would ride some momentum, and it's just been an absolute crash and burn here these last 3 weeks around the bye week. God, tonight's game was just an eyesore in every way imaginable. The penalties were ridiculous. I'm sick of losing the Pitt. It's just a joke at this point that they can't beat this team. And just, you know, Fran's got a lot of questions to answer about how he handled the quarterback room. You have a bye week. You could have gotten Luke ready. I didn't expect miracles when he came in. I don't think anybody did. You know, you just threw him out there. And if you're going to do that, then why not just prepare him properly in these 2 weeks? I mean, it seemed to give Rickie a little bit of a spark, but they completely wasted a great defensive effort tonight. And it's just, I mean, you saw with my messages tonight, man, I am just beyond frustrated right now. And it's just, it's terrible. After 10 wins last year, I mean, I think nobody expected based on the schedule they were going to replicate that. But to go completely backwards and potentially not go to a bowl game and follow up and just consolidate that great season last year. It's just awful. Season can't end soon enough for me now, and I hate saying that in the middle of October, but that's where my head is right now, my friend. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Frankie. And I think he encapsulates what a lot of people are feeling, and that's what you don't want. You want a team that's interesting, that you're engaged in, but now you're being told like this is basically a developmental situation. Now, that was a quote on one position, but it's the position, right? That's going to be a tough ask for people, even diehards, to hang in there. And Frankie's as diehard as it gets to watch that, right? Now, it's 5 games to go. Maybe they could prove us wrong in some way or the other, but I feel like this is what everybody kind of feared, and this just kind of sealed it. Let's go to voicemail number 2.
Brent, Nick from Las Vegas. It was great to see you guys tonight at the press box. Always good to see everybody when I get back into town. The first thing I wanted to touch base on was I thought the crowd tonight was actually really strong in the beginning of the game. And during pregame, I was able to walk around the sideline, and I got to see a lot of the recruits that were there on visits. And let me tell you what, they definitely are emphasizing size. Some of those kids, the linemen that they had in town tonight, were just massive individuals. Very excited to see the future for Syracuse football. As far as the game goes, this was definitely one of the times where we could put the blame right on the head man. Unfortunately, the end of the first half, not great, right? Fran made some bad decisions, which ended up costing some points. We could have gone into half down 3, 10-7. Instead, we're down 10. And then the second half, the whole eeny, meeny, miny, mo with the quarterback situation, that usually never results into good to positive things. So unfortunately, this one's on him, but in the post game, he was man enough to admit that, and he just reiterated how young this team really is, and I think that's the case, right? He made a comment that I think maybe you asked the question, but somebody asked a question about how much of the offense Luke Carney really knows, and Fran was not bashful to say not much. And if that truly is the case, then that explains a lot of why Rickie's still playing the amount that he is. And it looks like this is going to be a year we take our lumps and look forward to next year, unfortunately. But, hey, Georgia Tech next week, and then hopefully we can get some W's against Carolina and Boston College and see where the rest of the season takes us. Always good to talk to you guys, and we'll talk soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Nick. Good to see Nick at the game tonight, by the way. He's everywhere, man. He's in the press box. He's on the sideline. Like, he's all over the place. Because he's a wheeler and a dealer like that. But he brought up a good point about the recruits. There were a lot of recruits at this game. A lot of recruits at this game, over 100. And what are you telling those recruits, right? Like, look, recruiting, Fran has more than proven he's good at this. But what you're telling those offensive players, including a guy that decommitted from Penn State and came to visit as one of his first few visits with Oregon and Ohio State coming, Khalil Taylor is a very talented wide receiver, just to name one. Hey, guys, when Angeli comes back, hey, guys, next year, like, you're pushing everything ahead. This year, we're just kind of getting through it, man. But when you come in next, like, and you're selling that anyway, you're always selling what they can do and what role they're going to play when they arrive. And there were recruits from anywhere from 2026, 2027, 2028. So some of these guys are way down the future, but still, and you never know what kind of game you're going to bring recruits to. But I think some of those recruits are kind of like, well, if you have better options, those become more appealing, right? In a lot of ways, because you need some tangible things to sell them on. And there have been, certainly recently, you can tell them what their NIL situation is, what they're playing time. Ultimately, they care about, am I going to get on the field? So you can sell them on that. But that's a tough sell in a lot of ways. Now, you want them walking out of there with a good feeling. So just a little tougher to get them around on that. Fran's decision-making speaks for itself. He admitted how bad it was, but that just can't keep happening in those scenarios, right? So this has become a year. And look, I think a lot of people are going to hang in there. Certainly. I think if the leverage that Fran Brown and company gained by the 10-win season they had last year, it's like, all right, man, I'll hang in there with you. You're just going to lose the Fairweather fans. You're going to lose the peripheral. You're going to lose the people that are just there for, the kind of something to do. You're going to lose those fans. Like, you can't ask those fans, come hang out and watch us develop our quarterback here. That'll be $200, right? Whatever. I'm just throwing numbers off here. But the quote unquote diehards, the real fans, they're taking a deep breath. Like, okay, Fran, we believe in you, but it's going to be rough here until you figure out this quarterback situation, which Fran was upfront about, like just completely transparent and upfront about. And that's appreciated, but it's still, spoonful of sugar doesn't help the medicine go down in that case. Georgia Tech next week. It's a noon kickoff. We'll be back with Syracuse football live, our post-game show after that game. Syracuse Sports, the podcast. Hope you're subscribed and following and all that. We appreciate it. Guys and gals, we've had some great guests recently, and we will continue to do that. Basketball, as we said, there's an exhibition game Friday night, or no, it's the Saturday after the Georgia Tech football game in Buffalo. So they're getting ready. We went to 2 media days this week for basketball. So that's just here. Like, is it basketball season yet? Yes, it is. And we'll be talking about that on the pod, and we'll start doing our live post-game shows for that sooner than you think. So a lot happening here on the pod. We appreciate you subscribing. We certainly appreciate our Syracuse Sports Insiders for their great insight, their questions, their opinions, their analysis, the roller coaster ride we go on during games together. And being a Syracuse Sports Insider gives you direct text message access to me anytime. Sign up today. It's just $3.99 a month. Try it free for 2 weeks. See how you like it. And we're getting into the heart of things here and deep into the crossover season as we cover all things Syracuse sports, and we'd love for you to come along for the ride as a Syracuse Sports Insider. That is going to do it for this edition of Syracuse Football Postgame Live and Syracuse Sports, presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll talk to you again soon here. Thanks for hanging with us tonight.